I'm 81 years old, and I need to tell you something that's gonna sound cruel at first. Not because it's hopeless, not because life is meaningless, but because the way most people are living right now, maybe even you, is quietly trading away the only thing you can't earn back. And I didn't understand that until it was already too late to undo certain choices. Let me start with the part nobody likes hearing. You don't have time. You have a story you keep telling yourself about time. And that story is unbelievably expensive. I know because I paid for it. When I was younger, I was the kind of man people called reliable, the kind who showed up early, stayed late, did what he said he'd do. I built a decent life, a respectable life, the kind of life that looks good from the outside. And that's the trap, because when something looks good from the outside, you stop questioning what it feels like on the inside. For most of my adult life, I lived like I was rehearsing for the real thing, rehearsing for the time when the bills were handled, the kids were older, the schedule calmed down, the business stabilized, the stress eased, rehearsing for later, and then later arrived, and I realized I'd spent my best years warming up. The moment it hit me wasn't dramatic. No car crash, no heart attack, no movie scene where I fall to my knees in the rain. It was smaller than that, which is exactly why it scared me. I was 79, standing in my kitchen, holding a mug of coffee, staring out the window like I'd done 1,000 mornings before. The sun was hitting the same spot on the counter. The neighborhood looked the same. The world was quiet, and I felt nothing. Not sadness, not anger, just a strange emptiness, like I had been living in a house I didn't recognize. My wife had passed 2 years earlier, and people told me, give it time. But what they didn't understand is that grief wasn't the only thing I was feeling. I was feeling the weight of all the conversations I didn't have, all the risks I didn't take, all the moments I postponed until the calendar was more convenient. I was feeling the truth that no one warned me about, that life doesn't punish you all at once. It charges you quietly, in tiny payments, day by day, and then one day you look up and realize you've paid for a life you didn't even enjoy. Here's what I wish someone had grabbed me by the collar and said when I was 30 or 40 or even 50, you can build a life that impresses everyone and still feel like you missed your own. Because the biggest lie isn't work hard. The biggest lie is once I get there then I'll live. There is no there is only now, and now is always slipping away, even when everything seems fine. When I was younger I thought the goal was security. I thought the goal was stability. I thought the goal was being someone who handled life, so I chased the safe choices. I chose the job that made sense, not the job that made me feel alive. I chose the routine that kept things predictable, not the routine that made me feel present. I chose to be responsible, and I confused responsibility with meaning, and I didn't realize I was doing it because I was afraid. Not afraid of failure, afraid of looking foolish, afraid of disappointing people, afraid of starting over, afraid of being seen trying. You know what's embarrassing? At 81, I can tell you the truth. Most of what kept me from living wasn't money. It was ego. I cared too much about being respected and not enough about being honest. There's a moment in every life when you discover what you've actually been running from. For me, it happened when my grandson asked me a question that should have been simple. He was 16, sitting across from me, scrolling on his phone, half listening, half living in his own world. Then he looked up and said, "Grandpa, what was the best year of your life?" I opened my mouth, and nothing came out, because my mind started searching, like flipping through a photo album, and all I found were milestones, promotions, moves, achievements, responsibilities. And those aren't memories, they're receipts. He wasn't asking me what I accomplished. He was asking me when I felt most alive, and I couldn't answer him. Do you understand how terrifying that is? To realize you can name your accomplishments faster than you can name your joy. That's when I started thinking back to the moments I barely noticed at the time. Like my daughter at 7 years old, running into the room with a drawing, excited to show me something she made, and me glancing at it for 2 seconds while my eyes stayed on the paperwork in my hands. I told myself I was providing. I told myself I was building a future. But what I was actually doing was teaching her that my attention was something she had to earn. And now she's an adult, and she's kind and successful, and she loves me. But there's a distance in her that didn't come from nowhere. It came from all the not now moments. Another memory, my best friend Tom. We were close in our 20s. Then life got busy. Work, kids, exhaustion, routine. We kept saying we'd catch up soon. Then one day I got a call. Tom had cancer. Late stage. I went to see him. We sat in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and silence. We talked like strangers trying to remember how to be friends again. When I left, I told him I'd come back soon. I didn't. Not because I didn't care, because I was busy. 2 weeks later, he was gone. And I learned a brutal truth. Sometimes later isn't procrastination. Sometimes it's a quiet form of abandonment. People don't disappear all at once. Relationships don't collapse in one dramatic event. They fade because you keep choosing everything else. And the scary part is, you don't notice it while it's happening. You only notice it when it's finished. That's what I mean when I say I realized this too late. Not that life is over at 81. I still have mornings. I still have laughter sometimes. I still have sunsets. But there are certain doors that only open at certain ages. There are conversations you can only have before someone's gone. There are versions of your children you only get once. There's a kind of energy you only have in your 20s and 30s and 40s, and I spent so much of it trying to be set that I forgot I was supposed to be awake. Let me tell you what this looks like in real life. It looks like a calendar full of obligations you don't even like. It looks like working hard for a lifestyle you don't have time to enjoy. It looks like scrolling your life away at night because you're too drained to actually live it. It looks like telling yourself you'll take care of your health when things calm down. It looks like saying, I should call them, and then not calling. It looks like buying things because you're starving for feelings. And the tragedy is, you don't realize you're starving until you're old enough to finally slow down. And by then, you're looking at a life that's already been lived. So what's the lesson? What do you do with this without panicking? Here's what I want you to understand. The point isn't to quit your job, sell everything and move to a mountain. The point is to stop living like you're permanently postponing your real life. Because I promise you something you will not fully believe until you're older. One day you will wake up and feel time differently, not like a calendar, like a countdown. And it changes what matters. When you're young, you spend time like it's unlimited. When you're old, you guard it like it's sacred. And the heartbreak is realizing you should have guarded it all along. If I could go back, if I could sit across from my younger self and speak in a way he would actually hear, I wouldn't give him a list of motivational quotes. I'd give him a mirror. I'd tell him stop living for applause, because applause is addictive and it never fills you. You can win the approval of a room and still feel empty when you're alone. I'd tell him start doing small brave things, not dramatic things, not life-ruining things, small brave things. The phone call you keep avoiding, the apology you keep delaying, the walk you keep saying you'll take, the hobby you keep dismissing, the honest conversation with your partner where you stop pretending everything is fine, because that's where life hides, in the small moments you keep stepping over on the way to some imaginary finish line. I'd tell him stop waiting to feel ready. You will never feel ready. You will feel afraid and uncertain and imperfect, and you will either live anyway or you'll spend decades preparing for a life you never enter. I'd tell him, love people out loud, not in your head, not silently, out loud. Say the words, show up, be present, put the phone down, look at their face, listen like it matters, because one day you'll be sitting in a quiet house and you'll realize love was always available. You were just too distracted to receive it. And I'd tell him the final thing, the hardest thing, that your life is not measured by how much you control. It's measured by how deeply you experience it. Most people don't want a long life. They want a life that feels like it belonged to them. So here's the question I want you to ask yourself, honestly, without the performance, without the excuses. If you kept living exactly the way you're living now, where does it lead? Not in a year, in 20 years, in 40 years. Does it lead to a life you'd be proud to remember? Or does it lead to a life that looked impressive, but felt empty? Because you don't wake up at 81 and suddenly become wise. You wake up at 81 and finally see what you've been doing. And sometimes you don't like what you see. I'm telling you this now because I'm trying to save you from the kind of regret that doesn't scream. It whispers, it sits with you at night, it follows you into quiet mornings. It shows up when everyone else leaves and you're alone with your own choices. So here's what I want you to do after this video. Nothing dramatic. One small act of rebellion against later. Call the person you keep thinking about. Book the appointment you've been avoiding. Take the walk. Write the first page. Tell someone the truth. Cancel one obligation that drains you. Say no to something you do only to be liked. Say yes to something you do only because it makes you feel alive. Just one. Because the way you change a life isn't by changing everything at once. It's by changing what you do with today. I'm 81, and I can't go back and relive the years I spent on autopilot. But you can. You can wake up before it's too late. You can stop living like your real life begins after you finish proving yourself. You can decide today that you're done postponing joy. And if this hit you in the chest the way it hit me when I finally understood it, then don't just move on to the next video like it was entertainment. Do something. Leave a comment and tell me what you're changing. One thing, one choice, one phone call, one promise you'll keep. And if you want more of these truths, real ones, not the polished kind, subscribe, because I don't have forever, and neither do you. The clock is ticking. What are you going to do with today?